Hello and welcome to our latest webinar from Handwritten. I'm David Wax. I'm the CEO and founder of Handwritten. I'll talk about that in a second. But this is going to be a very interesting webinar because it's not going to focus on me and hopefully not even focus on handwritten notes too much. We've got two wonderful people that I'm going to introduce in just a moment to talk to you about donor stewardship. I know a number of our users are in the nonprofit space, and we thought it would be useful to just kind of collaborate, share ideas, make this very much a two-way conversation and discuss trends in donor stewardship. Judging by the number of people that registered, we had 102 people, so clearly this is of interest to people. Right now, we have 23 people live, so thank you all for joining. And with that, let's get going here. So hopefully you all get a lot out of it. And please do post your comments in the chat on the right if you went in through StreamYard, and we'll be sure to get to them at the end of this presentation. So for those of you that don't know me, I am the founder and CEO of Handwritten. Prior to this, which I started in 2014, so I've been doing this 12 years now. It's officially the longest job I've ever had. Prior to Handwritten, I ran another company, a company called Sell It, which was big in text messaging before the iPhone. So we started in 2004. The iPhone came out in 2008. I thought it was going to squash us. It ended up accelerating things. Prior to that, I've worked in banking and venture capital and all that. But really the more important thing is Handwritten and Sell It, because I've spent 22 years in messaging, whether it was text messaging or handwriting. But the most important thing is I'm a proud husband, father to 2 boys and 3 poodles. This slide needs to be updated. My wife keeps collecting them. So that is me. In a second, I'm going to introduce you to Lisa Robertson and Kara, and I'm going to butcher your last name, and Sotagui from FourPoints Collective. Lisa they're both co-founders of the organization. Lisa has been interim development director for 2 organizations, raising $5 million and $25 million respectively. She's worked for March of Dimes, American Cancer Society, St. Jude's. She is the mother of 4 and bonus mom to 3 more, good heavens. And she is the grandmother to 4. Kara, on the other hand, the other co-founder, has worked at American Cancer Society and has raised nearly $9 million against a $7.6 million goal. And I'm very, very excited to introduce you to these 2 wonderful people. So with that, let's bring them out onto the stage here and we can kind of get going. So Lisa and Kara, welcome to you both.
Thank you, David. We're so grateful to be here. And really that is, we're going to get into who FourPoints is and the work we do and how that translates to working with clients and stewardship. But just a big shout out to you guys for being such great partners to us. And David, I know I've worked with Handwritten as a client prior to, and now I work with clients in Handwritten. And so we're just grateful for you and your team and your ongoing partnership.
Yeah, no, especially in this industry of nonprofits, I think it's so important to kind of share, kind of spread the love and share best practices inside and out of handwritten notes. And I know you're going to cover some of handwritten notes, but hopefully, much more than that. And I think it's really valuable to everybody. So thank you both for what you do. And it is such a humbling vertical to work in. I go to these trade shows and I talk to people, small trade shows for nonprofits to large, and I ask them what they do. And, some of them are, oh, we knit quilts for cancer patients. And it makes me feel just terrible about what I do. All I do is send handwritten notes, right? So we're really blessed to have you guys as clients and assist you in the small way we can to help you raise funds and really steward those donors. So my role on this, for most of this webinar, except at the end when I might ask you some questions, is to run your PowerPoint. So you're going to tell me slides to turn. So I'm going to get going now. And yeah, so whoever wants to take it, please.
Yeah, thank you. Again, thanks for letting us be here. We do want to share a little bit about what we do, and it's a lot of fours. We have 4 points, and they're on the screen there. And we'll dive into them a little bit more. But we really do believe that if you build really strong systems, you have the right people in the right places, you're sharing the impact, and you're using innovation, that then you're really doing things to help bring your donors joy. You're raising more money. You're working efficiently, and we love to partner with nonprofits to help them figure out what each of those things is as we go through.
That's right. And by the way, it's Ann Sodegi.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, it's fine. You said you would butcher it, and you actually did a very good job. But I thought I would tell everyone. I always tell people to remember, and so did he. And so did he.
Oh, there you go.
All right. We can go to the next slide. So our first point that we really work with our clients on, and this does relate to stewardship, because having the right systems and structure in place allow us to ensure that our donors are treated the right way by the right people. And so those systems and structures we look at are, and you'll see on this slide, there's a lot of words on the index, but that's really those are all the areas we look at with our clients to make sure that they're working well. And we get into some places and they work fantastic, and then one little area might need tweaked, right? And we do work across both mid and major. I'm a personal I can't think of the right word. Mid-level is my love language, but we do work across both mid and major in building these systems and structure.
Yeah. And then thank you, David. Perfect. Part of that is, and this looks like a system and structure on the screen, but really, this is one example of how we track teams and performances, because there's so much to having the right people in the right seats, and we really want to encourage people. And part of that is, what can we look at that's going to help them measure what they're doing effectively, for not just for them, but also for the leaders, right? So this allows us to look at what's going well, what's going to lead to success, what are we aiming for? So we really, that's kind of how we talk about people, is what are we measuring, and are we measuring it well, and how do we make sure we're performing well? And
again, I go back to like trends and stewardship. I feel like this all relates, because we need to be able, it can be, I've worked in stewardship, you guys, it can be really hard to measure the work that we're doing. And it's really important we have ways and we have those structures in place to be able to do that for both ourselves and for leadership, to be honest with you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So we do that through four key ways, one of which, I'm sorry, what?
Should I go back? I'm sorry.
No, you're great.
Okay.
Yeah. When we are looking at those 4 points and we are looking at stewardship, we really think about the way we talk to our donors and the stories we tell them. So those need to be meaningful. They need to be impactful stories, right? It can't be that we served 60,000 people last year. Well, great, but like, what did that do for those 60,000 people? So we need to think about that differently. And people think in 4 buckets. They're either heart people, and they love stories that are like bleeding heart. They're innovation people, and they want to know what new and innovative things and ideas is your organization doing and moving towards. They want to know what the numbers are, the math behind it. Those 50,000 people impacted because of XYZ giving. And the last one is like an I think it's organizational, right, Lisa? Is that right?
They like order. Yeah.
They like order. Yeah. And so when we write stories with our clients, we really look at, and we look at stewardship with our clients, we really look at, is what we're producing speaking to everyone or just one person? And this article was called Don't Just Serve Bacon, because as a former event planner, you don't serve bacon at an event because you like it, right? You serve what your people coming to the event like. And so when we tell stories and impact and share stewardship, we can't share what we think is important. We have to share it in ways that we know is valuable to donors. And we've got to think across the board for that.
Yeah. We're always adding context. So the next slide is our 4th point, is innovation. And really, these are just a few examples of some of the tools that we are using and we like to use because they work well. but we love Avid AI because it talks about communication pieces, but also has some visualization that's super helpful, not just for the donor, again, for the fundraisers, but also for the leaders. We love to create dashboards in Power BI and other things like Tableau. And we love videos. There's a million video tools out there. These are just two that we like. And then, of course, our favorite handwritten program is handwritten. For the very reason that it's easy, and we'll share more about that. I know we're not supposed to plug you, David, but you are our favorite. So the reason we do this is we want to make it easier for us to do things that are meaningful to our donors.
Yeah, that's right. Would now be a good time for me to explain how at one organization we used it at year end, or do you want to talk about that later?
No, go ahead.
Yeah. So when we talk about making things easier, at one organization I worked with, they would thank all 1,000+ donors. And that was fantastic. The mid-level team would, except for at year end when they got thousands and thousands of 1,000+ donors, and they just didn't have the capacity to keep up with it. And so that's where innovation and using a tool like handwritten allowed us to still have personalized handwritten thank yous to people, phone number, contact information in there for them. And we were able to produce it much faster at a similar cost. And so again, it's a great, when we think about innovation, we really think about that kind of tool that allows us to produce and still personalize.
Yeah. Yep.
I was making notes for questions after this, but I figure now we might as well just cover it. For those that are not familiar with Avid AI, Power BI, and Power BI is charts and graphs that you can kind of customize. ThankView or Grativid. What is Avid AI, ThankView, and Grativid?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I'll start, I think. You can pop in, Kara, but Avid AI, they call themselves an agency in the cloud. So we like them for the visualization piece. They like to talk about their communication piece. So for one thing they can do is they are basically a layover of any place you have donor information. So Facebook, your donor CRM, your MailChimp, any of those programs. I'm using brand names for specific generic things, but you understand. So they can pull all of that. So for instance, I worked with an organization that worked in disasters. And when a disaster would strike, they'd have to get the story from the field overseas, send it to the marketing team, make sure they got signed up by the CEO, send it to the development team, and just go. And it's like 10 days or 20 days later before you get something that looked really good that went on their Facebook and everything else. And in this, you could say, hey, we got a disaster here. Tell me who's on Facebook liking that country, who wants to give disasters, and it instantly will produce everything you want for that. So it's almost like having another staff member. But the reason we like it for fundraising is some of the dashboard pieces, which, like one example, we work with an organization, they have a goal, and their headquarters says that you have to raise a certain percentage of money by a certain month based on long-term statistics of the organization, not the caseloads. Well, my strongest fundraiser, she's supposed to be at 70% by January. Almost all of her money, we're talking millions of dollars, comes in May and June. So she looks like a failure for months of the year. But on Avid, what they do is they'd say, based on the history of these donors in this caseload with this goal, here's how much we expect to come in every month. So as a fundraiser, I can keep track of that. And as a leader, I can keep track of that and know, like, are you really behind, or is this just where you're supposed to be with these donors? So that's when we like it. And then Kara, go ahead, and you want to talk about Power BI and Tableau, et cetera?
Sure. Power BI, Virtuous BI, whatever system you're working in, it really, that on the people in the right seats slide, David, it showed, that tracking. That's really what those systems do. We like to go in behind the scenes and work with the data people to get those set up so that they track the right metrics for leadership and for the fundraisers. So the fundraisers can see how they're doing, and then leadership can see how the fundraisers are doing. And we look at it very holistically and not just fundraising, but how are you doing on building connections? How are you doing on, your average gift size and moving donors to major gifts? And so that's really what we look at when we look at those kind of dashboards and systems. ThankView and Grativid, those are really tools that allow you to, with a click of a button, send a video with one and or many videos combined to a donor. So I have one client that uses one of these platforms, and we went around to all their different divisions and recorded everyone, literally a click of a button on their computer saying happy birthday. And then the fundraiser at the beginning of the video personalizes it for that donor and says, hey, David, on behalf of all of us at our organization, at 4Points Collective, the team and I want to wish you a happy birthday. And then it scrolls between these 5 different messages and people think it's all personalized for them. And it tends to be one of the higher responses that they receive from their donors when they get those. So it's just another tool in our toolbox to try to get donors to respond.
Yeah.
It's funny you brought that up or you put it on the slide, because that is when people say, what's the closest thing to a handwritten note? I think what people are really looking for in a handwritten note is not personalization, like Dear David or Dear Kara. It's personalized attention. And they know that you sat down and you spent the time to write them a handwritten note, or at least they think you did, right?
Yep.
And these I always say is a call or sending one of these video emails, like where it can almost be kind of gimmicky. You're holding up a sign saying, hey, Lisa, and at the beginning of the video, but it gets them to realize that you're spending your personal attention on them. And I think it's very, very powerful. So it's interesting that you kind of use the same types of tools. I think this day and age, everybody is not craving personalized. Everything's personalized. Every website you log into is personalized. Every mail merge documents personalized. But what you really want is personalized attention, and that's what it gives. What it gives you. So
great phrase.
You're absolutely right. So this is a very simple slide, and the reason we included it is I have always told my teams and my clients, your job is to be a broker of joy. So when it comes to trends in stewardship or trends in working with your donors, if you just consider yourself, my title is I'm a broker of joy. And what does that mean? That means learning about my donors, what they value, what part of the organization they give to, what societal cause they want to help, solve for, and tell them in your organization how they're doing that. You now are a broker of joy because they feel joy knowing the difference they made. And it goes to that personalization, David, right? Like I'm known, I'm seen, I'm heard, and that's your job as a fundraiser. That's your job in stewardship, is to ultimately be a broker of joy. And I think what is interesting about that is the more you do that, the more joyful you actually feel yourself, because it feels so good to make somebody happy. I had a client that I kept telling him this. He was new to fundraising. He was a major gift officer, and he'd been in the industry forever, but not a direct fundraiser. And I kept saying, Jamie, your job is just to make people happy and tell them what the difference they're making, and it's going to bring them joy, I promise. So a lady dropped off a $20,000 check, and he wasn't there. So as soon as he got it, he called her, and he said, Kara, she said, I was waiting by the phone for your call, Jamie. I couldn't wait to share my excitement in giving this gift with you. And he got it, right? He felt the joy that she felt by making that gift. And that's in the simplest terms, that's what we want to be every single day.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So as we jump a little bit more into, the stewardship side of this work and how we work with our clients on stewardship, I think we can all agree that fundraisers are doing more with less. Their caseloads are bigger. They're being pulled in a million directions with events. And the work that ends up getting squeezed is usually the most important work, which is the fundraising work. And we had a client, I think we started with them last year, Lisa, and I don't know if you remember, but I emailed to say, hey, it's time to get started. I'm so excited to meet you. And she's like, yeah, I'm going to have to, I can't start with you guys for 2 weeks because we have a big event coming up.
Yeah.
Well, how does that feel, Lisa?
Doesn't feel good. And it wasn't about us, right? It's that
Right.
we know that if she doesn't have an hour to meet with us, she's not spending time with her donors. Like she's running around getting shovels for the groundbreaking or balloons for the event. Like does it make sense? So she's not working on donors at that point. So that was what really startled us.
Yeah. And so I think it's why the innovation piece becomes even more important, is that we're getting pulled in all those directions. And we really, we need to make sure our donors aren't forgotten and don't feel forgotten.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the next slide is the problem that creates is our donors aren't disengaging from the mission. Like they're going away, right? We've seen the numbers. There's fewer donors, but they're giving more money. The donors aren't leaving because they don't care about what we're doing. They still care about whatever our mission is. They're disengaging because they don't feel seen. I love that expression you just said, David. Like they don't have that personalized attention that they're craving. And so that's why we think it's so important to steward well and to use our time really well, is to make sure we're treating our donors well, because that really is what matters the most.
Yeah, there's this impacts research report that I always quote. It came out like 5 or 6 years ago, and they did a survey of why people, and if I'm a broken record for you viewers out there, I apologize, but they did a survey of why people don't redonate. And the number one and redonation is obviously super important, and getting that above 50% is nearly impossible these days. And the number one thanked. And the way I actually interpret this is I think everybody was thanked. The issue is people don't feel thanked. So there's this difference between feeling thanked and being thanked. Everybody immediately got their Blackbot email or whatever, their donor perfect email, whatever that is. They technically were thanked, but it doesn't feel like a thank you to them. And the problem, to what Lisa and Kara are saying, is that nobody has the time to do that work. They're so busy doing the other work that work, which is so critical, gets squeezed out. And it's kind of this unvirtuous cycle of, you then lose donors, you got to work harder, but you don't have time to then thank them, and you're working harder and harder and harder, and it's the spinning wheel. Mm-hmm. So getting in front, whether that's a video email or something else that really shows you, or obviously a handwritten note or a phone call or knocking on their door to show that you care about them, it's like the most important thing, and the part that's often dismissed the fastest.
Yeah, and I think we would argue, David, because one of our biggest pet peeves, and again, I should apologize to anyone who's watched our webinars before, because they've heard this, is a tax receipt isn't a thank you. A tax receipt is a tax receipt. And I don't even know how many organizations we've gone into and we're like, hey, do you have a thank you policy in place? And they're like, yeah, you give a gift and then you get this tax receipt in the mail. And that is not a thank you. That when we talk about a thank you policy, we talk about, does an individual pick up a phone and call you or handwrite a letter to you thanking you without a gift amount included and without the date included? That is a tax receipt. You deserve, when you are giving at a specific threshold, an individualized and personalized thank you in order to be retained. And to your point, we know that about 70 to 73% of mid-level donors that give year over year retain. They're going to come back because they've given multiple years. Mm-hmm. The donors that give the first year, they retain at 25 to 33%. So to your point, one of the best things that you can do is thank that donor with a personalized phone call and handwritten note in order to retain them and help your retention numbers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and everybody's going to find the time to thank the $20,000 donor. Yeah. But what about the $5 donor? And these days with social media, not these days, it's been going on forever, but social media and all the rest, where people are doing these micro donations, you need to find a way to thank them. And, what you're doing is so critical. So,
yeah.
So, go ahead. I was just going to say, we stole the slide from David. So that's all I was going to say. You go ahead. You take it from there.
No, this is why I started handwritten. So going back to the text messaging business I used to run, handwritten notes, text messages, we were sending 1 million texts a day just for Abercrombie and Fitch and Toys R Us. And I realized, everybody feels like they're receiving 1 million texts a day. And emails, back then, 12 years ago, you're getting 147 emails a day to your office email inbox and spending almost 25% of your time just managing your inbox. So it became a chore back then. Well, now, thanks to things like AI speeding that up and all these cold email systems, which should really be just called spam email systems, that number is becoming much, much worse, right? So we're all drowning in messages, and it's really just a chore just to delete them. You can't delete them fast enough. And if you can't delete them fast enough, you're certainly not going to read them. So what are you going to do to kind of get above that digital noise?
That's right.
Yep. Anything you guys want to add to this?
No, I think, if we go to the next slide, the whole point of adding that in, and thank you for sharing that, David, is that that's the value of the right kind of stewardship. That's the value of being able to utilize these innovations, because donors ultimately want to feel known. They want to feel connected. And they want to know that they're making a difference in a cause that they have chosen to support when they have thousands and thousands of causes that they could support.
Yep.
100%.
Yeah. Next slide is, I think it's really important that we think about what does stewardship mean, right? We use that word a lot. And Kara and I, if you stick around with us at all, you'll understand we're very passionate people, and we have a few little soapboxes, and one of them is updates. So stewardship is not just sending out extra stuff, right? It's actually thinking about what is it that's going to help our donors feel known and connected, and all those things Kara just talked about. And it's that personalized thank you we just talked about. It's really showing them, like, what has their money done? Yes, we like to talk about being brokers of joy. If you use the word broker, we think about investments. Someone's invested in our organization. How are we showing them what that investment is doing? And then how are we really helping them know that they're known? And the whole point is so we can then ask really thoughtfully, whether it's asking them to come to an event, asking them to give more money, asking how they want to be communicated with. We're using that communication to really be thoughtful in stewarding them.
Can I share a really quick story about that, Lisa?
Yeah.
One of my favorite stewardship touches, it was from a mid-level officer. And this goes back to knowing someone, right? They want to feel known for who they are. Stewardship doesn't have to be about the organization all the time, you guys. It can also be about the person, because we know them. And so she had spoke to this gentleman. He was 86, and he was going to take what do you call it? What's the word I'm looking for?
A road trip.
A road trip. Thank you. Gosh.
You're welcome.
Lost that vernacular now that I'm not in road tripping age. And he was lamenting to her that there used to make some map. You know what it's called? What is it?
I do. I'm a woman of a certain age. They were from AAA. They were triptychs. They would like highlight the whole route for you, and you flip the page. It was pretty cool.
So he was lamenting to her that he wished she had one of those, and you can't find them anymore. And so she went online and she found one on eBay, and she bought it and she sent it to him. So this 86-year-old called her to thank her and tell her how meaningful it was. But not only did he do that, he took selfies along his road trip with him and his little tip trick, right? Is that what it's called? Tip trick?
Triptych.
Triptych.
Okay. Let's just pretend I didn't talk about a trick in this call.
There you go.
And it was clear that she brought him joy because she knew him and she knew something that he valued. So it's just a reminder, you guys, that A, watch the words you use in your webinar, but B, knowing someone for who they are and what they value doesn't always mean your organization.
Yep. And so on to the next slide. Again, I told you see a lot of number 4. We really think of stewardship in 4 buckets. And one is that gratitude, right? It's that thank you. We'll talk a little bit more about anniversary of their gift. It's the impact. It's really kind of telling them about the what their gift has done. It's connecting, and it is invitations. And so there's, if you think about 4 buckets of stewardship, that might help you instead of just thinking like updates. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And then on the next slide, we just have a few examples of stewardship tools that we use. I'm not going to read all of these because I value your time more than that. But I do want to just say that DAF conversations that we have in there, I think more and more donors are giving to donor advised funds. And we all need to get more savvy about how we talk about that with our donors, especially donors that might be lapsed from their donor advised funds. You might not have contact information, phone numbers for all of those as easily. And so those are things we work with our clients on, right, Lisa, to say, okay, you have this many lapsed DAF donors. Let's figure out how we're going to talk to them this year. We also really, the value in that unassigned thank you cards or calls, very, very important in how we talk to these donors that we were talking about earlier that maybe don't have a fundraiser assigned to them, but still need to be thanked along the way.
Yeah. And I would just kind of add to that, Kara, that I think people might see this, and if you are in the position of being responsible for these touches, it can feel overwhelming. but really there's stuff already being produced by organizations. So one of the things we talk about is turning marketing on its head. So it means you might take the newsletter, but instead of just mailing it or having it sent, you're adding a note to it. Whether you're adding the note or the handwritten is, or your direct response company is, there's something that makes it more like, hey, Lisa, I thought you'd enjoy the article on page 9, or hey, Kara, thought you'd enjoy this article about puppies. So there's just something on there that makes it personal. So it's not recreating the wheel. It's thinking about what do you have and what are you making that can easily translate and be sent to donors to let them know that they're part of the mission.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So how we use innovation, I feel like we've already kind of touched on this, but it seems like, I don't know, I think about innovation in this big way. And maybe that's because that's in our era, innovation was this big deal, but really innovation is for us anything that's going to make your life easier and allow you to still personalize your touch points to your donors. And that, again, broken record, it goes back to David's point of like the human relationship and the human side of this work. And anything that allows us to do that in mass or one to many is a huge benefit to us.
Yep. Love it. Yeah. So we do love handwritten. We just want to share with you a few ways. We're going to dive into a couple of these a little bit deeper. And we're not going to read all these again either, but we do like to celebrate the anniversary of someone's gift. We do love that year-end thank you example. Same thing. We've had to happen a few places. I'm working with someone now where they're like, we can't possibly do enough personal thank yous. We have too many. And when you actually look at the math, it was only at year-end. So it's like, yeah, for 11 months a year, you guys can handle it. In that 12th month, you need some help. So what's it going to be? What are you going to innovate to make that happen? And then we like to think about like webinar follow-ups, right? If you invite someone to a webinar, they're going to get the email. But if you can personalize it and say, hey, Kara, I'd love to see you there, that's great. And if you can follow up and say, hey, Kara, in case you couldn't be there, here's a QR code and there's a nice little handwritten note, ideal. Love it. Even better if you say, look at number 23. So I think there's a couple on there that you want. You want to say anything else about that one, Kara?
Yeah, if we can go back for just one second, David. Is this a hint that we need to be faster?
Yeah.
No, not at all. Not at all. I just want to make sure I was doing my job.
You're doing great. Just, are we talking too much? I think is what I'm
Not at all. Not at all.
So the one I want to point out on here, there's a couple, but the modified introductions, what does that mean? We have seen, and we know a lot of organizations have been coached every time you get a caseload, you introduce yourself to the donors. We don't disagree with that. There are caveats. And the caveat is we've been in and worked with clients that 3 people have cycled in that job in a year. And that is not donor centric to send the same letter to that donor 3 different times with a new name for a number of reasons that I don't think I need to go into. So how do you get around that? Well, there are ways, and it could be that you're sending a touch point to your donor and you have in advance gotten some 1-page cards from Handwritten that say, hey, David, I wanted to share the story about Samantha and the difference you're making in her life. I'm your new contact. Should you need anything, here's my number and here's my email. I look forward to talking with you soon. Now you don't have to handwrite those. Now you haven't printed all those informally, right? And they can go out as your introduction to your donors and they still know who you are, and it feels a lot more donor-centered than that same stale introduction letter that they just received 2 months ago and 6 months before that.
Yep.
One thing I want to add, and I do not want to focus on Handwritten here, but just regarding the QR codes, if they do scan, if you use Handwritten to insert those QR codes in the card, and those QR codes are scanned, it will not only go to wherever it needs to go to open up any video or watch a webinar, but it will tell you in the Handwritten website who scanned it. So if you send out that QR code to 100 people and 20 of them scanned it, you can then give each of those a phone call and say, was that video useful, or however you want to approach it. Or maybe you have to come up with other messaging for the other 80 that didn't open it or scan it to make sure you're in front of them. So
no, thank you for pointing that out. And you get an email too. I mean, at least, I believe, to say that someone opened it, which is really awesome. And I mean, it's kind of exciting because you're like, oh, I like that work I put into it, right? The same thing goes for the introduction videos. We talked about personalizing things. that is such an easy and cost-effective way to introduce yourself to the donor so they know that you're a real human through a
Yeah.
QR code. And they're so easy to make on
Yeah.
on the handwritten website.
And also another one, just for this is handwritten 101. So I'm sorry if you already know this, but
Love it.
you can go on the website and order and set up your birthdays. So you
Yeah.
just add your donors in there, you add the date of birthday in there, and then it will automatically 2 weeks before their birthday send the correct card at the correct time to them. Now, obviously, if you're using another platform like Blackbot or anything like that, you can organize it through there and not do it within handwritten. But if you don't have one of those platforms or it's too cumbersome, you can just upload your list into handwritten and then we'll take care of your birthdays for you. So,
which we love. Okay, we can go next slide now.
okay.
So Lisa touched on the anniversary ask, and I just wanted to amplify it. I was working at an organization and they're like, hey, every year on a donor's anniversary of their gift, it's been 1 year since they made their last gift, we send them an anniversary card and an ask. And I'm like, that doesn't feel good, right? That's fine for direct mail, that works. But for a fundraiser, you shouldn't be thanking and asking at the same time. And so what we work with our clients on is sending an anniversary card at the 1 year anniversary of their gift. And if they don't make a gift within the next month, because that's their typical month of giving, then we'll consider that solicitation letter and personalizing it to them. So it may look like it's June 29th. So July 1st, I do a data poll of all my donors. I look at all my donors who gave last year, 2025 in July, and I send them an anniversary card that says, here's the impact you've made in the last year. Thank you so much for your support. You're going to see a high percentage of those donors make their annual gift after that, and then you get to steward them and thank them. If not, that's when you send the solicitation the following month. Another data poll, look at July, who didn't give in July that you already sent something to, you send them a solicitation. That is really helping with renewals across all of our clients and helping donors feel appreciated for the support they've made in the past year. So it's one of our favorite ways that we use handwritten with our clients, David.
Yeah, and another thing I'd say is we have some people that they'll write something personal, not ask for the donation, the gift in their writing. However, you create the card as if it's a standard piece of stationery at your organization. On the back of that card or on the upper flap or left flap, however you have that card set up, you have a printed ask. So it's as if Lisa or Kara pulls out one of these cards from organization ABC that already has a printed ask, and then you just put your personalized note on there. So it kind of separates the personal part from the, oh, by the way, we're always, in need of your funds part. So that's another strategy. Do you use that at all or not so much?
We haven't yet. We've had success with our other option, but I think knowing that is just gives us another tool for our clients as well. So I love it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you were to start today, and everything we've talked about, I think, the easiest place that we think we can see starting is that anniversary card, stewardship, easy. And then those introduction videos with the QR code to really, especially to those first time donors, right? To really get in and increase those retention rates and let those donors know that you're grateful and who you are.
Yeah. So, thank you for letting us be here, David. We do want to we want to share a little bit of what we do. We do love stewardship. You're welcome to visit us online at FourPointsCollective.com, and we have a lot of free resources there, and we'll share one more free tool in 1 minute. But we do everything from interim leadership for direct development kind of positions, and then we do one-on-one coaching with people. And we also just really love partner solutions, which is helping build out those dashboards, helping develop policies, helping look at what's going on. And sometimes those things are combined with coaching, but sometimes they're not long contracts. Like we really feel like there's times where we can get in and we can just help. Someone's doing really good, we can help them become great with some small tweaks. So we have a lot of options available to help people. Did you want to speak to that, Kara? Okay, I will then. Like we just had a client who they had a lot of training and they would like some help just implementing the training. So it's not anything huge. It's gonna be like 8 weeks, right, Kara? At a pretty reasonable cost. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. I don't have anything more to add.
No, you're good. You had all your fun ones earlier talking about AAA. So what we do too is we like to look at data as a benchmark, and we really like to look at the pipeline, but also then what's a good threshold for mid-level, because really mid-level to major gifts is our sweet spot. We really excel there, and we like to help people determine like what's the case for load potential. But what we really like to look at is retention. Going back to those numbers at 30% first-time donors and 70% second-time donors. Are you tracking to that? And do you have the right metrics? So if you want to find that out, feel free to scan the code or email us at hello at FourPointsCollective.com, and we will send you the information about how to do that. So we'd love to talk to you, and we're very happy to share anything we have with you. It's all on our site, and then we're happy to do this assessment as well.
And then with that, questions. Does anyone have any questions? I know, David, you mentioned you had some, so.
Yeah, no. How, in the last year or so with email rates decline, and AI in general increasing, are these tactics, are the video mail tactics still working? And, overall, is it, getting people on the phone, anytime I get anything that sounds like a solicitation, probably not for a nonprofit, I'd listen to that one, but are you having a harder time getting that attention, getting in front of them to share your message?
I think that's such an interesting question, because when I hear what you're mentioning, David, those are all things that are kind of at mass, right? They are like the telemarketing, which I wouldn't listen to that myself, if I'm being honest with you. And I work in this industry, so you're being generous to say you would. I think that most of that isn't mass, and what our sweet spot is more helping people have techniques to build the relationship and to build the connection. And so is it harder? I think it depends on the organization. We have some organizations that have terrible, terrible phone number information in their database. So it's hard to get them on the phone. And you can't confirm their emails because that might have been a data append that was garbage, to be honest. But when they do get them on the phone and when they do have the right contact information, they're building stronger relationships. So I have one client that we started working with a year ago, and they're up about $300,000 with two people in their mid-level program this year, just by being on the phone more. But they had already established a lot of good phone numbers. They'd already established some of those relationships. And so it goes to our yes and. Yeah, I do think it's harder in some ways. And I think when you're working at the relationship side of it, it makes it, it cuts through that noise a bit. Lisa, what would you add?
Yeah. That was really good. The only thing I would add is I think, David, your question is, hey, is it still hard? Is it getting harder to get through? Yes. And what we coach toward is, what are you asking? So I have people are like, no one's responding to my emails. And then what you find out is they're just forwarding stuff, or they're sending stuff that's like, hey, here's a story about the dogs we rescued, but there's no question. Or there's not, to Kara's point, there's not something to appeal to everybody. And so you have a sad story, but there's no numbers, there's no impact. Okay, they might go, oh my gosh, that's so sad, and then they're going to delete it. It doesn't mean they didn't read it, they don't like it. It means you didn't ask for a response of any kind or give them something to hold on to. And so we really coach toward, what are you doing to make it a conversation and not just pushing stuff out. But also, we have organizations, I think you have to be brave enough to test stuff a little bit. And so like we have an organization and they're like, hey, we're going to try texting. And it's personal texting. They're not using, any, but they've really been surprised at how many of their donors will text back that never emailed or never picked up the phone. So they're discovering that their particular donors, where they live, their age, whatever, they like texting. And so they're making note of, okay, I need to text Kara, but Lisa is better with the email. And so those kind of things are going to build that relationship, and you make it easier to steward them long term, because now you know which one they prefer.
100%. Yeah. No, that's an amazing point. Kristen says, thank you. This has been very helpful.
Thanks, Kristen.
Julia had a good question. What are your sentiments on reactivating a donor who's been MIA or no longer engaging?
You probably don't want to know my sentiments, Julia, because they're strong. I would say this. It is wonderful to re-engage a lapsed donor in the 18 to 24 month period. If you are more than 18 to 24 months lapsed, you really need to look at them in more of an acquisition tool in your direct mail program than you should be in your relationship-based fundraising program. I've seen the 24-month lapse, 18 to 24 months come back, but typically what we see is those donors who give every other year, they might select a different organization every other year, and so they lapse. The goal obviously there is to get to know them and understand that lapse. After 24 months, it's probably not the best use of your time individually.
Yeah. Right. The only thing can I add to that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would add what you're saying here is like, don't chase them down. But if they do give again after 24 months, that's the time to really jump on that right away and begin to steward them again and try to get that engagement. One thing when they're within that time frame, that even 12 to 24 months, even right now with some clients that we work with, Kara, we know we're using kind of that, what we had it on a previous slide, like the information form. And it just would have a really quick kind of cover letter that would say, hey, I haven't been able to connect recently. I wonder if your information's correct. And you have this form that's just like their name and their phone number, their email, what they're interested in, and how they'd like to be communicated with. And if something's wrong, you highlight that. And I have 3 tricks that make that a bit higher response rate that we're happy to share at another time. But it works, right? Because you'll be like, oh my gosh, I've been sending this stuff to Lisa and she's moved, or she's at her summer home 6 months of the year. I wish I don't have that address, right? So yeah, I think there's ways that you can do that smartly.
I agree. I think, to Julia's point, my passion is, I had an organization, I don't know, 2 months ago, and they were like, don't forget our donors that gave 5 to 7 years ago. We really need we have a lot of donors we could get back. And I'm like, that's not for your individual fundraisers to be working on. Right. That's for your direct mail program to be working on.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely.
First of all, thank you very much for putting I hope, and for all the work you do. Again, I mean, I think you're doing incredible work. We do, and I want to thank the 30 people. Julia, Yay. Thank you again. The 30 people currently watching, so thank you all. And if anybody has any questions, please put them in here. If you have any ideas for future webinars, whether that's guests or topics, I do love when we incorporate non-handwritten topics. Oh, we just got one. I'm going to throw it up here from Kristen. What advice would you give to a new development director who's coming in without a framework?
Oh, well, I was going to say run, but that's not true. No, I think your data has to speak for your framework, Kristen. It was Kristen, right?
Yep. Yes, Kristen.
And so for us, that's hard for me to tell you off the jump. Without knowing your data, but the data really is going to help you with your framework and thinking about what you need from a major and mid perspective. And then from there, I think the framework gets built out on who does what and how did they do it, right? I mean, that sounds very simple, but I think you know my point, like who thanks at what levels and what communications are going out and what solicitations are going out. Lisa, what do you want to add to that? I can see something ruminating in your brain.
No, I was thinking that was all great. I was thinking about the pipeline, then figuring out part of that is who's doing what in the pipeline, right? Yes. How are you coordinating with direct response? How are you coordinating with your finance team? How are you coordinating with your development team to make sure that everyone's sort of on the same page and how things are going to donors, how it's being presented, how it's being flagged in the system, how it's being deposited, and what numbers you can share with your donors so that you give them good giving handles to give to. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I totally agree with everything you said.
And Kristen, I mean, genuinely, if you want us to look at that and help decipher what those numbers should be or could be, we're always happy to do that with our assessment.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
She said, and I tried to put it up and somehow the wrong one came up, big fans of the work you both do. And she's been very focused on analyzing the data and gathering the impact. So
good. Awesome. Good starting.
You'll hear from her. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, with that, I just want to thank you both again for joining. I hope this has been valuable to everybody. It was certainly valuable to me. Thank you. And
thank
we
you.
will try to do another webinar very soon. So until then, right on, everybody.
Yeah.
Thanks, David. Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Good to see
you.
you all.
Bye-bye.
Thank